Hello, so we're going to be looking at HTML in this video, but before we do that, guys, before we look into HTML, how its syntaxing is done and all that, let us quickly, we need like a few, there's a software we need to download, right? So I already have it on my computer, but I'm going to show it to you so that you would like be able to download it and use it. So this application we're going to download, this software, right, is Visual Studio Code. So basically, what this is how I would explain Visual. This is how I would explain Visual Studio Code. So you just like as a painter, if you want to paint, right, you paint on any surface that you wish to paint on, that you can actually paint on. But it depends on what you're trying to achieve, and some surfaces might allow you paint better than some other surfaces, right? So that's just how Visual Studio Code is, right? So you could literally write HTML using Notepad, and there are other ones you can use to write, but for the sake of this video, we'll be using Visual Studio Code. I personally use Visual Studio Code. I like it. It has lots of benefits. Code highlighting colors. A whole lot of benefits. That makes it really convenient for you to easily write code, right? So let's go. If you want to download Visual Studio Code, if it just says Visual Studio Code, let's download, right? So you can go to their website and actually just download it from there, right? So if depending on the device, the operating system you use, so it has all the well, I'm on Windows, so you can download it using this like button here. So it has all the information that you can actually use to do it. So please, you download and actually install it, right? So but I already have mine installed, right? So let's just get right to writing code. So if I actually open up mine, I said Visual Studio Code, and I open up mine, right? So you see it opens up this, right? So you literally see something like this. It's showing this folder here because this folder is on my computer already. But there are two ways you can use it. You can actually either open a file or you can open a folder. I personally like, when I'm working with folders, I like opening. I personally like opening um folders. I prefer working with folders, right? So if we want to work with a folder, because I can see all the files that are inside that folder. So if I want to work with a folder, all I have to do is I select open folder, then I actually go to the folder where I actually want to work with, right? So I can select it on my computer here. In this case, this is the folder I actually want to work with, and then I can open it, select that folder, right? And then any files I have inside here, I'll be able to see them here. But as of right now, there are no files there. That's why we can't actually see anything being done in there, right? So so for the sake of this video, right, let's quickly create some files. Let's quickly create some files, right? So we're going to create something called index.html, right? So when you're actually creating you're creating um you're creating a website, right? So the index page, right, is usually the first page that gets loads, right? It's usually the first page that gets like loaded. So when you go to something like, let's say a company's name is Funka, right? Funka Limited, for instance, and then you go to their website, let's say funkalimited.com. So when you go there, the first page you usually see is the index page, right? So that's the first page that the server like brings out and shows you something like that, right? So that's the easiest way to explain it. So whenever you want to create a, HTML file, you actually have to put this .html at the end. So the website, the web browser, it's going to understand that you're trying to create a HTML file, right? So when you do that and you press enter, you can see that we can actually type code in there, right? So let's begin typing some HTML code, right? So when we do this, we have doc type, right? Doc type HTML, right? So we have doc type HTML, and then we're going to have HTML lang equals to en. So basically what we're saying is we're specifying that, hey, we want the web browser, right, to actually work with English, right? So that's what en language is, right there. So you can see that it has already closed. That's one of the advantages of using something like Visual Studio Code. It has already ended it, right? So how does this thing work? When it comes to HTML, right, there are tags They are elements that everything you see on the page, right, it can be said to be called an element, right? You see a picture, it's an element. You see a link, it's an element. All that are elements, right? So elements have opening and closing tags. Some of them you don't actually have to close them, like the image tag, like it's self-closing, right? But for HTML, you can see that it has this HTML here as its opening, and you can actually see that it's closing at the other side here, right? So that's basically how it works. So if you want to type anything, right, as it's closing there, so you have to close. Not all tags have to open and close, right? But the HTML tag has to open and close. So let's quickly type something. Let's type the meta, right? I'll say character sets equal to UTF-8. So what are the meta tags, right? But this meta tag actually has to go inside the head tag. Apologies. So we have a head tag in HTML, right? We have head, right? And what does this head tag actually do, right? So the head tag is basically like holds information about the website, right? That doesn't really, like, that is important for the website, but it doesn't really get shown to the user, right, on the page, but it's important. For instance, when you go to a website, let's say we go to, you see here, right, if you hover this, you can actually see that it shows some information, but that information is not really like shown on the web page here, right? So that is where those kind of things go into. So this meta tag is actually supposed to be inside the head tag, right? And then this meta tag, right, actually explains what this meta tag is like. It holds extra information for the website, so to say. So like this code here, you see, what it does is it tells that the website should be able to use like extra characters, right? Things like emojis and some whole bunch of other characters, for extended character code for the website, right? And then we have, let's write another meta tag. We have meta name, say viewport. So what this is basically saying is you should use the screen that of the user, right? Like the screen it's currently seeing, right? That's the easiest way to explain that right now. And then we say content width equals device width, right? And then we say initial scale equals 1.0. Then we close this. So if you can see something, you would notice, right, that this particular tag doesn't have a closing tag. It's a self-closing tag. It can close itself, right? So that's the way they work, right? So you can see this head, right, closes here, and when you want to close, you have to use this, slash, right? So that's how it actually works, right? So this viewport is basically just saying, hey, use the device, the viewport, right? Then this content basically says you want you to use the width of the screen of the user, the device of the user. And then this initial scale basically means like, okay, when the page first loads, should it be zoomed in or should be zoomed out? So with 1.0, it's saying, hey, I want it to be like the usual size. I don't want it zoomed in or anything like that, right? So that's when it comes to HTML5. So a lot of these syntax are a lot of the syntax will be writing your HTML5 syntax, right? It's upgraded, right? So let's put a title for the website. Let's say title, right? And then we say we'll put our title. So let's say my website. So this title is the one that if you go to the website like this, right, you can see this title here, and that is that title there, right? My website. And then let's put a link. Oh no, that would let's leave that. So we'll do more of that in the CSS video, right? Let's focus more on HTML for this video, right? So let's just put something on the website. So let's say body, right? So body basically, right, is body is like the tag where you can see that it's opening and closing, and all this is closing because VS Code is closing it for us. That's one of the advantages of using VS Code over something like Notepad. You can actually use Notepad to do this too. So when you put anything you put inside the body, basically the content of the website basically goes into the body, right? So that's what happens. So you can see all these right from here, you could say from here down, to the end are all the body, and that's where the content of that website goes into. Okay, so let's write something. Let's write header, right? Let's create the header tag, and you can see that it's closed, right? So it has an opening tag and a closing tag, right? and then let's put something. Let's put the h1, and then we say welcome to my website. Let's do this like this. So what is header? So header tag in HTML5 is like, it's basically a tag that you can use to write, put like header, like headings on your website or something like that. That's a summary of how you can, what that actually means. And then h1, right, is a tag that you can use to put like headings. Just like if you've used Microsoft Word, you can have various heading sizes, so that's what it can do here. If you have, there's still h2, you can say h2, right, heading, let's say heading 2, right. You have h3 heading 3, you have h4 heading 4, right, h4 heading 4, you have h5 heading 5, and you have h6 heading 6, right. So you can actually do all of this, right, and do that there. So that's that for heading, right. And we'll actually open the website and we'll see all of this, right. So let's actually open what we have now and see what it looks like. So to do this, we can let me just copy the path, and then I go to the web browser, and then I paste this here. So you can see what we already have, right. This is what it looks like, right. Okay, so let's do something else. You can see that the sizes are decreasing, from the top to the bottom, right. So let's do something, right. So I'm going to get rid of all of this. Just wanted to show that. So let's create a tag, right, called nav. So nav basically is where you can have your navigation, right, on your website. That's what like summary of nav, right, is. So you can have navigation on your website. So say you can have the home page, the about page, and the contact page, right. So basically this is where you could put all of those, right. So let us also do something on that, right. So let's put ul, and then ul stands for unordered list, right. You can use it to like put unordered lists, on your website. So an li stands for list item, right. So let's just say home, and let's just put about, and this will be for contacts, right. Let's just say home, about, and contacts, right. Home, about, and contact. So this will be links to other pages, right, which we'll get into. But before we get into that, let's just show you what this actually looks like. So when you save with Ctrl S and we go to our web page and we view it, you can see what we're actually having, right. So this basically is what we have. So there is OL. OL is actually stands for ordered list. So let's say you want an ordered list, you can actually use that, right. You can see that, but in this case we want an unordered list, so let's leave it at that, right. And then let's look at some others. Let's look at section, right. So section is basically how you can actually put a section on the website, right. So let's look at section, and then let's say we could have P is paragraph. Let's say section 1, right. And then let's copy this, right, and paste it, and let's put a div, right. So div basically stands for division, right. So it's like, you have paragraph, right. So but this is how I like to explain div. So you have paragraph, right. You could use div like, the way you have lines in the paragraph, something like that. And you could also use div to group like a group of contents together. So by the time we refresh this, right, let's look at what we have. We can see that here. So if I duplicate this, right, and let's duplicate this so that we'll see the differences, right, and we'll go back to the web browser. You can see the differences between paragraph and div, right, in that regard. Okay, so let's do something else again. Let's add something extra. Let's say let's put let's put a footer. So footer, right. So when you go to your website and you see like the end of the website, right, you can see some basic information about like from little things like this. So let's create a footer. I would say let's do this. So this copy is going to create the C symbol, and let's put here, right? And let's say my website. So footer is usually used to put those kind of things. So when you go to the website and you see the footer, it can be used to insert those kind of things. So you can see, right? That's how that works, right? So basically this just is an introduction to what you have as HTML, right? And then let us quickly add links to other pages. So let's actually separate some of this content and create an about page and contacts page and link these three pages together, right? So let's quickly do that. So if we want to do that, how do we do it, right? So first things first, let us get rid of all those sections. We just need one section, and I'll just put a P here. Let's put a P here, right? So let's get rid of all those sections. So if I want to have other pages and then link them, how do I do that? So let's create a new file here. Let's say about.html, and let's create another one and say contact.html, right? So if you look at this index, right, I'm just going to copy all I have here, but before I do that, I'll say the home page, right? Let's copy all of these. Let's come to about, paste it, and I'll say my about. Let's say about, right? And let's just put this is the about page, right? And then we still have all of this here, and we'll just say the about page, right? So, and then let's copy all of these and let's just put here, and let's just say contacts, right? So let's just say this is the contacts page, right? And then let's put contacts here, contacts, right? So how do we link these pages right now? So if we come to this index page, right, mind you, if we go into the folder, this is the folder I'm currently working in. You can see all the various pages are there. So how do we actually link this page? So we can actually still go to those places and actually open those pages individually. So how do we actually link these pages? There's a tag called anchor tag, okay? And then we could say ref. Ref actually stands for, like, A stands for anchor, that you can use to link a page to another page, and ref stands for the location of the file. So in this case, the file actually exists within the same website here, which is this place. So you can see VS Code is already bringing out the files that things we want to append. So if we just select this, you can see that it has done that, and it's actually supposed to go in quotes like this, right? And then you can do that, and then we can have, you can see it's closing there. So you can see home. So you can see that the A tag, right, it has an opening and a closing tag. So you have to, when you open it, you have to close it. So let's just copy this and then come and paste it here. Let's copy this and paste it here. So here we would say about, right, to link to the about page, and then we'll make sure that this is inside, right? And then here we would say contact, and we say this, right? So let's copy all of these and go and replace it in the other pages, right? So we come here and replace it here, and then we come here and replace it here. So if we come back to this website, we'll come back to the website and we'll refresh this page, you can see, right? So by the time I click about, it takes me to the about page. By the time I click contact, for the contacts page, we didn't work on this about. So on this contact, let us change here to contact, right? So when I hit refresh, which is Control R, I use this, right? I'm using Chrome. Please also ensure that you have your Chrome browser installed. You need a web browser to be able to view the website, right? So you can see if I click home, it takes us to the home page. If I click about, it takes us to the about page, and if I click contact, it takes us to the contacts page. So right on the home page, let's just do something real quick. So let's actually add briefly an image, right? So if we want to add an image, we use the img tag, right? And then with the img tag, we want to specify the source, right? But in this case, I have an image on my computer, right? So I have an image on my computer, so I'm just going to copy this image and come here into the website folder, right? So when I do that, basically how I would recommend you structure your files, right? You should always group related files together. For instance, if you have images, you should group them inside the images folder. If you have JavaScript files, group them inside the JavaScript folder. If you have CSS files, group them inside the CSS folder. So let's just create a new folder here, and let's call it img, right? So let's just call it img, and then we put this in here. You know what? Let me just img, and we put that in there, right? So by the time we do that, you can see on VS Code, right? It comes up, the image is now there. We can actually click on it and we can view it there, right? So basically, let's come here and let's do something. Let's select the image right now. So if you want to select that image, because it's actually inside an image folder, inside the folder we're currently working in. So we'll have to supply the image folder. You can see that, and then we can now put the image. So if I just click this, right, it has given me the image. Well, I'll type the image name, and then the format of the image, right? So when I do that, and it's a self-closing tag, you can close by itself. So let's just specify something. Let's just specify a width, let's say 500 pixels, and then we'll get more into pixels, right, in CSS, what pixels are all about. But let's just put 500 pixels, but this is setting the width of the image. And let's say height, let's say 300 pixels, right? And by the time I come back to our website and I go back to the home page, you can see the picture is loading here, right? So basically, this is how you can actually do, a very basic website with HTML. So in the next video, we'll look more on CSS and see how we can use CSS for a couple of things for websites. Thank you.